أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وآل محمد الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. قال الله جل وعلا في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلا وربك لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم ثم لا يجدوا في أنفسهم حرجا مما قضيت ويسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد. Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran al-Kareem, He mentions a verse that is profound to such an extent that you can possibly say that the entire deen of Islam is reflected in one verse. Now, of course, this is the night of Al-Qadr, and Laylatul Qadr, we want to be in our worship, inshallah, in our ibadat, for this is of the 3 nights that we are told that our qismah for the rest of the year is organized. But inshallah, I'll refer us to a narration where I believe Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, or one of the Imams alayhim salatu wasalam, they say that of the best a'mal on Laylatul Qadr is to seek knowledge. For inshallah, maybe tonight we can do a little bahth on this one verse of the Quran al-Kareem and consider this part of the a'mal of Laylatul Qadr because it's from afdalul a'mal. It's of the greatest of days on Laylatul Qadr is to seek some knowledge. For inshallah, we're going to do a bit of a bahath on this verse I've mentioned with a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. قال الله جل وعلا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلا وربك لا يؤمنون. He says فلا وربك, certainly, nay, he swears by himself, وربك لا يؤمنون, they have not truly believed. In what, Ya Allah? In the nubuwwah of Rasulullah, in the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, in the wujud of Allah Azza wa Jal. He says they have not believed. He swears by his own nafs. حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِيمَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُم, until they go to you, Ya Rasulullah, to resolve their issues. If there is ever a dispute, if there's ever an issue that comes up, they go to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And if they don't go to Rasulullah, in other words, they say the mafhum is the opposite. If they don't go to Rasulullah, they haven't truly believed. But Allah Azza wa Jal, He says there's more to this. It's easy. Many Muslims, they say we go to Rasulullah, we go to the ahadith. Allah Azza wa Jal gives us the surface and then He gives us the inner. He gave us the zahir, He gives us the batin. Then He says, ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ. When they look at themselves inside, whatever you judge, Ya Rasulullah, you're the judge of the issue. In their heart, there is no straightness, as one of the interpretations says. In their heart, there is no discomfort. وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا, and they have full submission to you, Ya Rasulullah. Azim. You find Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, فَلَا, nay, وَرَبِّكَ, He does qasam. He swears by Himself. In some verses, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا, He's doing qasam by the makhluqat. Allah Azza wa Jal is doing qasam in His rububiyyah. وَرَبِّكَ, يعني Rabbi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So He says, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا, again. No, no. They definitely, I swear by myself, He says no twice. They have not believed. In other words, what He says after becomes wajib. Hatta, then He says the shart, at-ta'lil, the reason, the conditional, they have not believed until what? Ya Allah, يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِيمَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ. And then on top of this, after you've gone to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and you've chosen him to go through this issue. He says not only that, inside their nafs there is no haraj. Haraj means in Arabic that there is inzi'aj al-shadid, where there is a strong discomfort. You know, sometimes when the sheikh comes to you and says, this is haram, say mathalan, and you don't like what's happening, you don't like what the sheikh has told you, even though he's coming from a fatwa of a marja. And this particular marja, of course, all the maraja have nusus shar'iyya, diniyya, min al Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So this is from Ahlul Bayt. But in your heart, I don't like this ruling. This is called haraj. It's something we should watch out for. And then he says they submit to you a thorough submission. وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. For you find the reason that this verse descended originally. Of course, we know that the ayat of the Quran al-Kareem, they're inspired by things. With a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There was an issue with Zubayr ibn al-Awam, who was, I believe, of the Ansar. And then there was another, Afwan, of the Muhajirin. And there was one of the companions of Rasulullah from the Ansar. And they were having an argument, a very intense argument. They both had trees that of their ownership, their palm trees that they owned. And they were having a dispute as to who waters their trees first. Of course, they're farming, they have to water their trees, take care of their crops. It's a real dispute. So they go to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad, you are the one who Allah says that we're supposed to go to. So they go to Rasulullah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, he hears the issue, what's happening. They explain the water issue. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, he says, it's better if, Allahumma salli Muhammad ali Muhammad, if you water, Zubayr, water your tree, and then when it's watered, because your tree is higher, let it trickle down and water the tree of the Ansari that's with us, of our ashab. So you find that the adl of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, instead of saying dividing the water and taking turns, he says we can water one, and because of the gravity and the slope of the land, we can water two. So you water two at the same time. We call this in Islam adl, justice. For you find the justice of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi is behind this, which means that this is the justice of Allah Azza wa Jal. The Ansari did not like this hukum of Rasulullah, to the extent he got upset with Rasulullah, he got angry, and he said, even your cousin, Ya Rasulullah, it appears in the narration, he's related to the Prophet somehow, that the son of your auntie. The hadith says Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi changed color, was very upset with him. He's very, very upset. And furthermore to this, when the Prophet got upset with him, Allah Azza wa Jal, he sends this ayah, that when the Prophet gives you the hukum, the ayah that we started with. Now, of course, when we know the asbab of the nuzul of an ayah, as the scholars will teach us, it doesn't take away from the mafhum. Yani, for example, when you see this ayah, it says, لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم. We don't interpret this only when there's a dispute about watering trees, for example. The scholars say you take the mafhum. What is the mafhum of this ayah? In Tafsir al-Amthal, you find that Ayatollah Makarim, he says that the mafhum of this ayah is that you have taslim to the adl of Allah. You have taslimu amam al-haq, as the Shaykh says. The Ayatollah says that this is showing the mafhum of having submission in the presence of haq. So when there's something right, to the extent that even if he goes against you, for example, in this case, the Ansari did not get his tree watered first. His resources were not met first. Allah Azza wa Jal requires that in the presence of a Nabi that we have full submission, inshallah. So that's a brief explanation, and I'm going to go through a few more dimensions and how this plays out in our life, because that's what's important. What's important is how this mafhum from this ayah actually has one of the greatest impacts of our iman. In fact, you find that the best way, the quickest way to go to Allah Azza wa Jal is the simplest way. But you find in our religion, MashaAllah, ask children, Islam, is it simple? Is it complicated? I say it's very complicated, Dad. Very. Why? Go to the Risala Amaliya of Agha Sistani, thousands of fatwa, Baba. Lots of fatwa. How is it simple? And this is just ahkam, akhlaqiyat. We have all these different etiquettes we have to do. There's different kinds of respect for the elders, for the young, and how you work. And there are rules and regulations for everything. What food you eat, what you dress in, marriage, transactions, business. You know, you tell people in business, mashallah, they're very religious, tell them that the Imam says that a tajir who does not have tafaqquh, understand the ahkam, is a person who's corrupt. They say even business, naam, everything. But you find that, look at life in general. Remove Islam, wal'ayadu billah, from your life. Isn't life complex anyway? Aren't humans complex anyway? You find that Islam, no. Islam is actually the simplifier of life. Why? Because it unifies everything in your life to one source. Yani mathalan, you find, for example, when people are in the jabha and they're fighting, they're in the front lines, the frontiers, and they're fighting. Talk to them and they'll say, these soldiers, after a war, they'll say, yes, it was scary. Yes, it was frightening. Or perhaps they're brave. They say, there was danger, but I was up for it. But they'll say to you, but there was also this strange sense of calm because I only had to think of one thing. Not thinking about my family. Your family leaves your mind at some point. In the heat of the battle, you're not thinking about your bills. You're not thinking about anything but the one task ahead of you. In fact, even people who study, which is a lesser example, have the same thing. When they're focused, they feel it's like therapy. Yes, some people even study and it's a form of therapy. Why? Because they have one thing to focus on. There's one source. Now you find people when they're motivated by something greater than the task. For example, a father or a mother that's working hard, they have 1,000 things to do in their week. Let's be realistic and say hundreds of things to do. Hundreds of little things to do. Thousands of thoughts have to run through their mind. But their one goal is the comfort of their family. You find that this unifying notion in their mind calms the issues that they're having. You find that they don't have to think so much because this energy that they have, this motivation, embodies everything that they do. You find that with the mu'mineen, Allah Azza wa Jal is such a central part of their life. Everything becomes for Allah Azza wa Jal. So everything becomes the ita'ah of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So you find that there's a complexity about life. We can't deny that. Let's bring it back down to earth. We have a million things to think about. But when we say that everything's under the guise of Tawheed, and don't take this for a mistake or something that's by accident, or don't take this as hyperbole either. There are people out there are organizations out there are energies out there that purposely want to busy you in this world and they say this, so the people forget God and they follow their desires and we sell to them. Naam. Following religion, it's not unpopular to be faithful. If you sit and have a conversation with people, faith is a good thing. People like faith. It's full of hope. It's full of understanding that there is something greater than you. But faith becomes unpopular when people start preaching how unpopular it is and start to shift the image of religiousness. So instead of being people of acceptance and rahmah and kindness, they become people of judgment and people of anger. And you notice that they focus on this. And there's always front and center the religious people, either they're deviant with the children, in some religions they're accused of this because of the bad actions of some, and same thing with Islam, how the accusations of extremism and anger and as part of the religion itself. You find there are bodies out there that actually work against us. Why? Because it's not good for the economy, and it's not good for the resource grabbing that happens in the Islamic parts of the world. And also religion in general. When you look at the education system and you look at the Islamic education system, and let's look at the history. For example, when you look at Iraq today and you look at Iraq close to 1,000 years ago, we'll say, it was the center of knowledge for the world for 300 years. And this was because the Muslimin at the time, the scholars that were there, they had a holistic approach to knowledge. In other words, they would learn one science, then they'd learn another science, then they'd learn another science, and they would say, what is the relationship between all of these sciences? They had a holistic worldview. The modern day understandings that we have, they compartmentalize knowledge. Why? It's akin to when you look at an artwork through a straw, all you see is a small dot. You look at and scan across and you look at another side of the artwork, you see another dot. They close the scope of vision. Why? Because if you're a physicist, you only see the world through physics. You're a chemist, only see the world through chemistry. If you're a psychologist, you only see the world through psychology. You're a designer, you only see the world through design. What happens? You start to not see the bigger picture and how everything is connected. Why is this important? Why is it that when you drive, when you clean, when you work, when you eat, when you study, it all has to be looking at the same thing? Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, in his remembrance, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he says, may Allah have mercy on the one who knows where they are from, where they are, and where they're going. What's the Imam teaching us? You have to know holistically your entire world and existence. You're from somewhere, you're present, and you're heading somewhere. There's a journey ahead of you. He links past, present, and future to get together as one. When you teach people that the world and the way you learn and accept knowledge is separate, what you're saying is that there is no Allah Azza wa Jal linking it all together. Because it is very natural that when you see a link with every part of your life, you have to have some tadabbur afwan. You have to think to yourself, how amazing is this system that me physically, emotionally, spiritually, and the universe in its greatness is linked to one place. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم. We'll show them signs in the heavens, in existence, and in themselves. We're all linked. We're interconnected. You will definitely ask yourself, if it's all connected, who connected it? And that takes you to Allah Azza wa Jal. So we find that being religious, being faithful, I want to ask everyone a question, and you have to answer it in yourself. Is religiousness complex or is it simple? Is it complex or is it simple? Islam, is it complex or is it simple? Ahsantum. It's very simple. Why? Is it difficult to deal with Allah Azza wa Jal? Who's the easiest being to deal with in your life? Don't say your partner. Don't say your children. Allah Azza wa Jal is very easy to deal with. Allah is simple with us. Habibi, if you've made a sin, come to me, I forgive you. قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. خلاص. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. خلاص. ما أتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا. Whatever Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, do it, do it. Whatever he says, don't do it. Where does the complexity come from? I have an issue with what the Prophet said. What did the Sheikh say? What's going on? The religion is very simple. There is a method of eating that's good for you. A method of dressing that's good for you. There's a method of learning that's good for you. There's a method of society that's good for you. There is a place to go when no one else is there for you. This is good for you. It's all hayya ala khayr al-amal. Come to the best of the actions and deeds. The complexity in our religion does not come from religion. It comes from our constant questioning. Al-Islamu huwa taslim. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says in a long hadith, but in the very beginning, he says Islam is taslim. Islam as a religion is to submit. What keeps the complexity in religion is our attachment to our own ego and our own sense of ananiya, our sense of self, who we are. Whereas you find the Urafa, ذابوا بنور محمد وآل محمد عليهم الصلاة والسلام وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم على محمد وآل محمد. You find the Urafa, they have melted in the presence of Ahlul Bayt. You know, would you like to know how simple the religion can be? I think everyone here has been on ziyarah at some point, at least the vast majority of you. Is that correct or not? Have you been to ziyarah? Ziyarat Imam Rida alayhi salam. When you go to the Imam, are you remembering all the ayat of Quran that you know? Are you remembering all what you say in your salah? Are you thinking about work? What are you thinking about? What's happening? You are with Hujjatullah, sahlawla. You're with Hujjatullah. Your heart connects. Your heart connects. What happens? Islam becomes simple for you again. The way you talk to Allah Azza wa Jal, it has to be simple. There are a few things we're asked of during the week, and a lot of it you'll find, for example, that we have a narration that says that 1 year, 1 hour of thinking, reflection can be 1 hour of ibadah, or 1 year of ibadah, or sometimes one narration says 70 years of worship. The scholars, when they want to reconcile these ahadith, they say, of course, the quality of your dhikr, the quality of your tadabbur. If your quality is small quality, Allah probably give you a year's worth of ibadah. But if you're like Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi alayhi salam, who in the Taf of Karbala, who was used to be Uthmani, and always a follower of that school, and had 1,000 men under him, who was a qa'id and a strong warrior and military man, changes that. They say that hour, that's the hour that's worth a lifetime. The reflection of Hur inside Karbala. But you find the religion says, learn a bit and reflect a lot. In fact, there was one sheikh, he was saying, a sheikh friend of mine, he was reflecting when he was a student. And the students would argue as to who studied the most. I say, MashaAllah, this is one of the best arguments you can have in a class. Who studies the most? One was saying, after school and after Hawza, I study 4 hours a day. MashaAllah. One says 6 hours a day. One gets up and says, I study 9 hours, sheikh. He says, his teacher, the sheikh, rebuked that other student and said to him, when do you have time to reflect on what you learned? Islam is simple. It's not asking you to be a sheikh. It's not asking you to be a scholar. But even the scholars will say, we've learned, but that is not a shart of closeness to Allah Azza wa Jal. And I'll say this, ربما, you find a fallah, a farmer, who has more closeness with Allah, because he spends a lot of time reflecting on the creation. He reads his Quran, he goes to the Jama every week, he listens to a mafhum of the Quran al-Kareem, he has his ibadah, and he spends hours with the creation of Allah, up and down, herding his sheep. And you find that they have the best type, because their Islam has no ananiyah. They are reflecting, no one's watching them, there's no riyah, there's no conceit. When they're alone by themselves, they're reflecting and they're talking, conversing with their Lord. Simplicity. Take this with you home tonight. Don't complicate your religion. There are things called wajibat. If they're a wajib, do them. Of course, when it comes to the brothers and sisters, the hardest thing we have is probably our dress code, wearing the right hijab for men and for women. There is hijab for both. And, certain things to avoid, certain sounds that are not good for us, music, for some types of haram music, that's good for you because it's not good for you to listen to these things. Allah Azza wa Jal almost pleads with us. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. In Surah Al-Qamar, he says, this Quran, we've made it easy to remember. It's simple. We have 5-year-olds who saw on that Quran show in Iran. You had this girl, mashallah, I forget how old she is, maybe 9 or 10. She answers with Quran, any question. There was another boy on the spectrum, he only responds to Quran. He can't learn anything else. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. I've made this easy. Your religion is simple. We have a narration that says the believer is so simple, people who don't believe think them to be stupid. This is one of our narrations. Why? Very simple. I remember, this is back in when I was in college, my early days. And a lady goes to shake my hand. It was a teacher. I said, sorry, I don't shake hands with women. They go, why? I goes, because my prophet said I can't. And she was stumped. She was confused. That one, people have prophets nowadays. You know, in the modern age, saying I have a prophet is a funny thing to them. But two, that's the answer. I can give her the falsafa, and it's out of respect. And Allah Azza wa Jal made it haram on me. This is my answer. I have a relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. I have a trust with Him. I know He's there and I trust what He says. Do I need to go further than this? No. You can, and it's mashkur. Wallahi, it's mashkur. Why? If you're in the scene of talking to people and getting into Islam and they want to go to the details with you and they want to say, why does your religion say this? Naam, it's wajib upon you. You have to study. You have to understand and know how to do hiwar with people and also have adab. You need to know how to talk to people, have manners. But if you're a Muslim, you're a Shia, and you're from home to work and live a private, quiet life, simplify it. Don't pressure yourself. We have awamir, we have commands from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. We have ways of connecting with them. They're always available. Allah Azza wa Jal, above all, is available and made them as doors of mercy to Him. You see? So inshallah, I won't go longer than I have to. But inshallah, we think about at least taking the mafhum of this ayah. If we're confused, you know, what's beautiful about this ayah, the ayah before it, it says, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ إِذْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُم. If you've oppressed yourself, جَاءُوكَ, they come to you, Ya Rasulullah. فَاسْتَغْفَرَ اللَّهُ وَاسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُمُ الرَّسُولُ. They do istighfar to Allah. Then they seek Rasulullah to do istighfar on their behalf. لَوَجَدُوا اللَّهَ تَوَّابًا رَحِيمًا. They find Allah is forgiving. And then this ayah follows, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِيمَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ. They go to Ya Rasulullah and they can ask you, like the same as the sons of Yaqub, Ya Abana astaghfir lana dhunubana inna kunna khati'in, sa'astaghfiru lakum Rabbi. They did tawassul to their father, ask Allah to seek forgiveness, I will talk to my Rabb and do forgiveness. Rasulullah has that relationship with us today. This is tawassul, this is what tawassul is. Understanding that Rasulullah is the greatest of the shuhada of the ummah. Is that right or not? وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ, as the Hajj was reciting. Yani Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi is hayy. Of course He is. You have access to Him. Sometimes you just have a conversation with your Prophet. Please make this simple on yourself. Make your life easy. He's alive. Those who accuse us of shirk don't understand the Quran. Does this ayah not apply? Is the one of the words of Allah? When you say Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi, are you saying salam to a non-hearing deaf prophet? Astaghfirullah. You're saying this to a hearing prophet who hears our salam and returns the salam. It's wajib on a believer to return salam. He returns your salam. You have a connection with him. Connect with him. Make your religion. You have a problem, Ya Rasulullah. Sit in a quiet room. Dim the lights, Ya Rasulullah. I've done something wrong. Can you go to Allah, ask Him to forgive me? Ya Rasulullah, I have an issue. Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ya Fatima al-Zahra. How many scholars have come and said, I had the greatest troubles. I did tawassul to Fatima al-Zahra, salamullahi alayha. I found Allah open all the doors for me. They are the doors of mercy. We have an Imam who is waiting and returns. Imam al-Hujjah, ajalallahu ta'ala farajhu sharif, he's available. Ask our leaders how much Imam al-Hujjah has helped our nations and helped us as a people. Your religion is simple. We can continue with the questioning, but at some point, and as you get older, you have your tajriba ma'allah. You have your experience with God. You have an experience. When you're young, you're new. Really? Would He, if I make this dua, would it happen? Really? And then time after time, Ya Ammi, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times Allah answers you. And that's 100 you remember. The thousands you forget. At some point you have itmi'nan. Allah, you're there. Khalas. You have yaqeen. This is where religion becomes simple. Is that understood? Sometimes we forget the khair of our partners and we remember every shar. If this is how you are with people, you are like this with Allah. Believe me, I speak for myself. When we're used to looking at the khair of people around us and the khair of our life, we start noticing what Allah does. That's when we notice. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. We know these verses. We know them. Think about them now. Think about them more. If you find Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and pardon me, I have not prepared any azah, but remember what the Imam said when he is struck on his skull and the poison reached the brain, as the doctor said, فُزْتُ وَرَبِّ الْكَعْبَةِ. Allah, Allah. How does a person struck on the head? Because everything is Allah-centric in the life of the Imam. And even in the pangs of death, he requests, he says to Ibn Muljam al-La'in, he says to his sons, give this man some water, he looks nervous. The adrenaline is rushing in his body, calm him down. The adrenaline is rushing, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, because he struck you. He's taken you away from Al-Hasan wal-Husayn. He's taken you away from Sayyidah Zainab and Kulthum. This man who's taken you away from your children, you're a baba, you're a dad, you're still young, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Give this man some water. Give him water. What's the hukum on this man? Strike him as he struck me. If he lives, then he lives. You find Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, to the last breath, was simple. Everything is for Allah. And he had full taslim to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. So when he is struck, he says, I'm successful by the Lord of the Kaaba. And his justice is still there. And he still judges with justice. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to raise us with Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. We ask Allah to hasten the reappearance of our Imam, عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والنصر واجعلنا من خيار أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه ببركة الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.